Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Joseph Szymanski. We are joined virtually from the Phoenix, Arizona area today by Mr. Andrew Flowers. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for stopping by. Well, virtually via Zoom. I really appreciate it.
Definitely, I'm excited.
Yeah. I'll give like a little bit of my side of the story here on how we got connected, and then you can fill in the details with your context and all your backstory and everything like that, because I know it's a very interesting one. And so I've been doing all these different things. If the audience is following the stuff that I'm doing on the MJS side of stuff with entrepreneurship and finance, and one day I put up a video, which it's actually funny because I still have yet to put up more content about this topic, but one day maybe. I put up like a video about Aslo, and Aslo is a business bank, online business bank. And that was just me talking to the camera, I think, and like there might have been like another video, something like it. But I'm still in the process of building more content out on that. And Andrew, I have my stuff in my description, my Instagram and all that. And Andrew hits me up on Instagram and shoots me over. I don't know if it was a voice message at first, but I know we were going back and forth about Aslo via voice messages. And point more of the story is that's how we got connected. We followed each other on there, followed each other on LinkedIn. Andrew's doing some great stuff on all the social platforms. He's out there in Arizona, so that's different. It's very different for any of our audience that's out here in the Pittsburgh area. So we're gonna dive into that. I know that you, Andrew, you were kind of like involved in a digital marketing company. You've since like changed. I know you were at Canyon Angels, now ZorroSign. So I want to kind of dive into all that, but I'll just kick it over to you, man. Like, kind of what's the backstory? What's the context?
Definitely, yeah. So I guess I can start kind of. We connected, like you said.
Yeah.
Aslo, interesting concept.
Yeah.
Some of that type of neo banking, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, neo banks. Really
Mm-hmm.
interesting stuff there. But I guess to kind of start things off, entrepreneurship, man. That's definitely what my addiction is. I guess
Yeah.
everybody has their drug,
Yeah. Certainly.
and entrepreneurship was mine since high school. Just jumped in right away, all through social media, which was quite funny.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Scaled, my personal network. That's a big thing that
Yeah.
really is super effective. Super important for anybody. And now being in college, going from high school to college, I know there's a lot of, I mean, that's a whole another conversation, right?
Yeah.
The college, no college route, and there's two sides to that coin. But through that, came to GCU out here in Phoenix, started a digital marketing firm with a few buddies of mine, ran that up until right before COVID, and then recently got invited to join a team here at ZorroSign. Just recently moved their HQ from Dubai to
Wow.
Phoenix,
Mm.
and now working with that. But yeah, that's kind of the general, I
Yeah.
guess, crash course on what from 0 to 100 of what's going on so far.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So, like, there's a lot to unpack there, obviously, and I think the first thing is something you brought up just in the context there that I noticed is that you're doing pretty well. It seems like on LinkedIn, on Instagram, I saw that you have like almost 5,000 followers or more on both platforms and stuff like that. How did you do that? How did you when you were actually first? Let me take a step back. Are you still in college, or are you like how old are you?
Yeah. So I'm a,
Yeah.
I'm a senior this year at
Okay.
GCU.
Gotcha. Okay. So like 22.
21.
21. Gotcha. Okay. So how did you grow that? What were some of the steps that you think that you took while you were in high school and college to just expand that network?
Well, made a lot of mistakes, that's for sure. But I guess, and I wouldn't even, I don't feel like my network's that big, and for some people, right, it's all a matter of perspective,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, it's
Uh,
growing.
exactly right, and it's
Yeah.
exponential growth with that.
Yeah.
Kind of like network marketing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the same way. But
Yeah.
just meeting people, putting yourself out there on social media. I remember it was kind of a funny situation. I tell this to a few of my friends. So there's
Yeah.
a buddy of mine who had watched some car videos online, and it
Yeah.
was this guy on YouTube. His name's Jeff. He's
Yeah.
now a friend of mine, but he runs a channel called JR Garage, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of car videos, finance, entrepreneurship, that sort of stuff. And he posted some business video with a friend of his who was running a digital marketing agency focused in like the automotive space. So
Mm-hmm.
DM'd him, and from there, was able to do some work with him and his firm out in Virginia. And keep in mind, I'm in California at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
He's in Virginia. Worked with him, and then came to Phoenix and started my own firm.
Hmm.
But again, all about who you meet, putting yourself out there, taking the risks. I mean, I'm a 16-year-old kid DMing this guy,
Yeah.
who's all the way across the country,
Yeah.
trying to be like, hey, I love what you're doing, and here's what I can do, and here's how I can add value to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. So, a young age, you were out there trying to make connections. You were trying to add value to people's businesses and lives. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that. I think.
Definitely. And the thing is, and this is kind of what I realized was like, now looking back on it, and now you know what it is, but when
Yeah.
you're just starting out, you're just thinking like, hey, I'm gonna message people and see what happens. Like, you're not
Yeah.
thinking about building a network or anything. You're just like, hey,
Right.
I want to work at Dick's Sporting Goods or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you know, do something else.
I feel that. Yeah. So you said you were in California originally. Did you grow up in
Yeah,
California?
yeah. So I'm from Central California, about two
Hmm.
hours north of LA.
Okay.
So similar climate to Phoenix now,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So and you mentioned it before we went live. It's still hot out there. What's
It is.
temperature today?
Matter of fact, today I think it's supposed to get to 93.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, yeah, 93 today, and then by Sunday it's supposed to be 66. So
Jeez. It's
it's gonna
65
yeah.
here now, and it's already been probably close to 30s. So
Oh, so
it's
I'd rather trade places with you than
Are you serious?
yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm not about the hot weather. I've grown up with it. It's like,
Really?
it just wears you down.
That's wild. That's wild. I imagine too, like, so with this show and with, like, my network, it's kind of been relatively, I would say, confined to like the East Coast, right? So, I probably follow a lot of creators. I definitely follow a lot of creators that are all over the country, but they're not really talking about, the differences here and there. They're kind of talking at things at more of a national scale, especially everything that's going on now and stuff. Is there anything, like, would you say, inherently different? So you've lived in California, live in Phoenix now. Did you ever live anywhere else, or like what kind of, can you give me like the more than the climate, but just like the overall,
Yeah,
even if you've traveled anywhere else, what's the kind of difference there, would you say?
definitely. The key thing I'll say is Arizona specifically, because I've grown up close to LA. I've been to New York and those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Things are a lot more like laid back here,
Mm.
in terms of the pace of like people moving,
Right.
right? Um, the Silicon Valley in California, that's like really high paced, interesting dynamic, very like innovative mindset.
Hmm.
The unique thing about here in Phoenix is there's still that sense of time urgency, right? Because everybody knows about opportunity cost.
Right.
Um, but there's a little bit more of like, I'm not going to be busy just to the extent of being busy. I'm going to be busy with a purpose. And
Hmm.
if timing is a factor in that and I need to wait, then I'm okay with that rather than trying to force myself through. Here, at Phoenix, I can kind of say, from being out here, I've seen definitely the exodus from California.
Yeah.
Without getting too much into that, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
It's unfortunately, and living in California, and this is the reason that I waited to start an agency till I moved out here, was California's just become a really toxic business climate,
Hmm.
not very business friendly. And so I see Arizona starting to really kind of develop a good startup environment. I help lead an angel investment group out here as well. So
Hmm.
we work with a lot of the startups that are here locally,
Hmm.
and we just see a lot of growth here, Utah, Texas, a lot of these other places. It's really interesting dynamic taking place.
Interesting. Interesting. So, with all of that, you're currently, like you said, in Phoenix, going to Grand Canyon University. Is that all, like, how does that work? Is that all online? Like, how does that, is it around
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
So right now
Or,
we're doing like a hybrid
gotcha.
approach. So we go into in person one day a week, and
Okay.
then the other day is kind of virtual.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm terrible with geography, so I have no idea where Grand Canyon University is. Is that
It's
like,
in West Phoenix.
gotcha. Perfect. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. So you're doing all that. Sounds very ambitious. Obviously, you've already had, walk me through that first one too. So, like, you have, when you started your agency, walk me through like kind of all that and exactly what went on there.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine, Connor, and I, we freshman year, right out of the gate, like,
Yeah.
hey, let's start. I mean, because that, on like 50% of the time that was, 50% of it was like kind of a fad at the time.
Yeah.
It was start a social media
Yeah. Yeah.
agency.
Yeah.
And then 50 of it was like, hey, idle hands are the devil's workshop. You ever heard
Yeah.
that saying before, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, let's get our hands dirty. Best way to learn is best way to learn to swim is by drowning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely. Yeah.
maybe that's me. That's a crazy approach, right? So we just, formed an LLC, and originally we were trying to do restaurants, and then kind of got a little more into personal branding, and then eventually kind of settled in the healthcare space and built a lot of great relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the organization, I'll be really frank, and I try to be honest with a lot of people who ask about it. It was not everything that you would expect it to be, nor would you have hoped it would have been.
Yeah.
Um, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, young guys, and even young students here that are younger than myself, and they take on this approach with very wide eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and not in a way of saying that it's not achievable, but starting an agency or whatever it is really really difficult. And
Mm-hmm.
in our case, we came to the realization in about March, as COVID was kind of in full swing, and started shutting down a lot of like orthodontic practices, dental practices, clinics, those sorts of things, which were our target market.
Mm-hmm.
We realized, hey, this number one, we are not prepared for COVID. Number two, we're not experienced enough. And it was like, hey, do we continue to take two steps forward and one step back? Or do we look at ourselves and go, hey, let's go ahead and move into something where we have mentors and advisors. We're young, we can learn. I'd rather learn from somebody who's done it successful than try to learn it on my own and take 10 times as long, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah. So, so you had some success, and then obviously COVID happened. So you kind of like, has that kind of like gone by the wayside now? It was like just a project and an
Yeah,
opportunity.
so yeah, we ran that for about 2 years roughly, and more or less got what we wanted to out of it.
Right.
We didn't come with like high expectations of like, wow, we're gonna be the next,
Right.
Sam Ovens or whoever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was like, hey, it's an experiment, right?
Yeah. Certainly.
So we
Yeah.
tested it out and met amazing people through it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good. The biggest thing that I would say that it created was credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you can say, especially as a college student, your age already, people kind of come in with these, preconceived notions about college students of like, hey, broke mindset, getting a degree, entry level job, yada yada yada. But really being able to say, hey, I've got these battle scars, if you will,
Yeah.
or I've
Yeah.
got this thing that I actually put myself out there, risked it, and took time to really try to build something. I think it really adds a lot of weight to your voice in the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's that's a great project. First of all, I mean, it's a great industry to kind of be in, get your feet wet. So many things that I'm sure that you learned from that, and like you said, you build a ton of connections in the healthcare space and probably even other industries and stuff like that. So, no, I think that's great. I actually wish you said you started that when you were a freshman in college. I wish that more people would be that ambitious that early on. I mean, that's kind of partially the approach from here. Having great conversations with individuals like yourself, just trying to get that out there because it's fun, man. It's fun. I don't know about you, but like, I don't know. I'm interested in like, what do you think kind of like sparked you to do all these types of things? Because there's a lot of people out there, I feel like, that just don't have. I don't know what it is. I feel like everybody it has it in them, but some people, it just seems like they don't feel like they're good enough to start something, or they don't feel like they feel like there's like a certain level of fear or something like
Yeah,
that. I haven't been able to figure it out yet.
I think yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. Because I think if you think about it, I guess it just comes down to the idea of like, what do you want to do?
Hmm.
Who do you want to be? What do you want to create? Like everybody's got their own goals.
Yeah.
Um, it was funny. I had the guy who our CMO, or CGO, growth officer for ZorroSign, when he was talking with myself
Hmm.
and my former business partner who's now in the same company as
Yeah.
me. He asked us, initially he's like, why do you do all it is that you do, right? Like if you look
Hmm.
at somebody's resume, like he was like, why? why are you involved in these different things? And it was really like a moment to where I realized like, hey, like I don't have a clear answer for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess that means that it's like it's almost second nature,
Yeah.
right? And I think it really comes down to, I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you'll know. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you'll know, which
Mm-hmm.
is at least where I'm at. But then the other side of it, I think, and Gary Vee talks about this, and I
Yeah.
know Gary Vee gets a lot of hate, but it's like, you know, um, right now, especially when you're young, try out 100 things or 10 things or whatever,
Yeah.
and then at least you'll know if you don't get anything out of it, you'll know at least you don't want to do those 10 things.
Yeah.
That's the
Definitely.
way I kind of look at it. And it's, and GCU, the university actually has a unique project here called Canyon Ventures. And their whole mission is young people. There's no reason young people should be competing for, if they want to go and be an employee,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason they should be competing for entry level positions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Young
Yeah.
people can compete for those higher level positions within organizations or start their own, right? And have
Yeah.
the network to do that. So,
Definitely.
if that answers your
Yeah.
question.
No, certainly. And specifically that point there, I commend them for kind of having that approach because that was always the thing that just like irked the hell out of me was like when you're trying to get a job at first and it's like, well, no, you have to start right here for
Apply on the
like,
website, meet the
yeah,
recruiter, and do
yeah,
and you're making 40, 50,
yeah,
60 grand a year,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's, yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I don't know what the cost of living out there is. That's not like necessarily the worst thing in the world to make, but at the same
no,
time
no, no,
though,
no. I understand.
it's like, but you know what I'm saying? Like for that was just my approach. And I think that's kind of like, you know, the same thing that you've probably experienced is, you know, you're going to try to go out here. We're hard workers, right? Like, and we work for other people, but when we don't have like a type of ownership in something, or we don't have like a vested interest, and we're not making what we think we should be making, and we're working just as hard
You're
as
right.
maybe the CEO, it's like, it's tough, man. Like,
There's
why
a
don't, like,
there's
why would I work for somebody else?
cognitive dissonance, baby. I
Yeah.
tell you, something interesting. And I know, to touch on your point, yeah, 60 grand is not bad by any means. I think
Yeah.
it's more of like a perspective shift that are a lot of people our age could benefit from, and saying, look,
Yeah.
60K, like it's good, but it's, that's like, why
Yeah.
not shoot for more? That's
Right.
kind of the question I'm like, why
Yeah.
not come out of college making six figures
Yeah.
and I know it really depends on a lot of factors, but
Right.
have the mindset of saying, this is what I'm going to shoot for. I'm going to get as close to it as I can.
Right. Yeah. I think it's even more too about like the fact that not 60 grand is bad or whatever like that, but it's the idea that once you, because I mean, I literally went through this when I was working like an actual 9 to 5 job. It's you lock yourself in at a low number because you just want to get in the door. And like an employer isn't going to just like bump you up 20 grand for no reason or anything like that. Like, but if you have a business, if you're working on things on the side and then you're able to transfer to those, it's like, you know, with the things that we're doing here, like, you know, MJS Industries and like all the different things that I kind of have in this, I'm building into this empire, like, you know, we're not making as much money as we did when we were working, but like at the same time, the upside is literally leaps and bounds. I mean, it's crazy. So that's just the way I think about it.
See, yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting. And, I love talking to people again, like yourself, that kind of this resonates with, because I think we could definitely positively impact some people from this type of content. But
Absolutely.
yeah. So where do we go from here? So we talked a little bit about the agency that you had. Obviously, you learned a ton from that. I know that I was creeping on your LinkedIn profile, and we've also talked about some of this stuff. So there's Canyon Angels, and then also ZorroSign that you're at now. So is Canyon Angels the angel investment group?
Yeah, so Canyon Angels is a 501c6
Yeah.
or C3, one of the two. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's C6. Nonprofit group. We're an angel fund, so we just kind of act as a matchmaking service.
Mm-hmm.
We've got about 70 angel investors, and we find highly scalable, usually tech play startups
Mm-hmm.
here locally and within the country, and even internationally, that
Mm-hmm.
we match with our investors. But the unique thing is we are one of the only angel groups in the country that allows undergrads to help conduct due diligence. So our undergrad members, they have the ability to conduct financial analysis, competitive analysis, market analysis, um, and meet and greet our investors and build those
Yeah.
networks, right?
Yeah.
And but also really share their expertise if
Hmm.
they're looking to get into the venture capital, private equity, investment banking world.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's so like the students and the people that are a part of it like are actually like can be very integral in that process of like networking and stuff like that. There's the opportunity to do that. So and what's is that kind of like your role there? Are you kind of like one of the facilitators of that?
Yeah, so I'm one of the student directors, so kind of
Gotcha.
a directorial, more like a custodial role,
Okay.
helping to facilitate engagement and what deals that we need to bring to our board to view those sorts of things.
Gotcha. Give me a little bit of a background on that. So like I kind of know about the venture capital game to a certain extent, I guess. But if you want to like kind of gloss over sort of like even the process that you kind of go through with that, because I think it's something that is quite interesting for a lot of folks. And I don't know, like especially like me, for instance, like if you had I assume that it's like if you kind of have an idea, business idea and stuff like that, you're looking for funding and your idea is good enough and all that, you can kind of
Mhm.
facilitate those types of things. But what's it kind of like from
Yeah.
your perspective?
No, so and I think you're spot on. Some venture capital, private equity is something a lot of like the hustle culture doesn't touch on.
Yeah.
It's such a huge part of business.
Hmm.
So essentially, you got to look at like the startup roadmap. Especially if you have a bigger tech idea, whether it's
Hmm.
software or even a product.
Hmm.
And you have this idea and you want to turn it into a business. First off, you got to get what's called your angel money,
Hmm.
which is usually angel investing. It should take up. This is again, I'm not like advising. I'm not
Right.
advising of any sort, but this is just kind of what we use as
Right.
our rule of thumb.
Hmm.
For example, usually we suggest that you make up no more than 5% of your portfolio of an angel investments because
Gotcha.
it's such high risk. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 of these businesses don't return on investment or they turn into like zombie companies.
Right.
Um, but the point being is if you're starting out a company and you have an idea, you need to raise, few tens of thousands of dollars to get this idea off the ground. It's equity funding usually, and there's different types of agreements.
Hmm.
Safe agreement, which is for future equity. There's convertible notes. There's all these
Hmm.
different interesting, ways that you can invest.
Right.
So usually you want to do those what's called a friends and family round. So you'll go to your friends, your family, say,
Yeah.
hey, I'll bring you into this opportunity. Here's my thing, and they just kind of cut you a check and whatever the legal documents look like there.
Hmm.
In the angel investing, in sophisticated angel investing, which is kind of the area we play in, it's
Hmm.
accredited investors, which is SEC requirement. You
Hmm.
got to have, like $1 million in net worth or 250 in net income or gross income for like 2 years, excluding primary residence. All these interesting caveats there.
Hmm.
Basically saying you are rich enough to be stupid with your money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think those rules just changed a little bit, but that's kind of the space we operate in. After that, if and we kind of we help raise, our group specifically helps to close rounds. So
Hmm.
usually in an angel round, you'll raise anywhere between 1 to 3 million,
Hmm.
thereabouts, and then you may do, after you raise that angel round, you'll kind of go into what are called series rounds. So
Hmm.
series A, B, C, D, and these are how companies like Uber, Airbnb raise money. They'll just do it in series. So say
Hmm.
series A round, I'm raising, another, 4 million. I'm raising, $10 million in this series B round. And they'll go to angel groups. They'll go to angel funds, which are kind of more of a like a pool of money type situation.
Hmm.
And then once you get a minimum MVP, so a minimum viable
Yep.
product, and you
Yep.
have traction and you have revenue, um, you can usually start being introduced to venture capital groups, which take a hands-on approach. Not only will they invest, but in most cases, they'll have somebody sit on the board of the organization, or they'll be a little bit more hands-on because their goal is to scale that company up within their portfolio,
Hmm.
um, and be able to get a good return when that company makes an exit. So that's what angel investors. We don't really take a hands-on role
Hmm.
in those deals just because we're hey, I'm going to give you $5,000 right now for, 30% of the organization. And, and hoping for the best type thing.
Right.
Um, then eventually, once a company kind of raises money, gets successful traction, the two main types of exits are going to be either going public, so just an IPO,
Mm-hmm.
or a private equity acquisition, which is private equity groups literally are just groups of uber rich people,
Mm-hmm.
uber wealthy
Yeah.
individuals who say, we're just going to buy this company outright. We're going to own it. We're going to input our own people onto usually into the C-level positions. We got a CEO that we want to put in to scale the company. And then, here's our goals that we want this company to sell to a Microsoft or to a, Facebook or to, an Oracle, those types of situations. And that's kind of the roadmap of startup funding, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Super brief.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've definitely heard of, definitely seen, like almost like it sounds synonymous to like a Shark Tank type of approach. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
So they're usually venture capital
yeah,
investors.
yeah.
Mark Cuban may be different because he's a billionaire, but
Yeah. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you breaking that down for me. The thoughts that come to mind with that are like how many that's something like, for instance, like the things that I'm doing right now, like, web design and fueled by progress and all this other stuff. Like, I don't really see that on the roadmap right now. Or like even really kind of into the future. I can't like fully kind of wrap my head around like how I would do that. I guess it's more for like maybe like different services and SaaS products and like that. That
yeah.
could be like one area that I guess you would do that in. Like, what do you, since you're somebody that knows a lot more about that space than me, is there like, do you think that is there a lot of companies normally looking for funding like that? And like, how many of them like are legit? Like I think it's, I don't know if it's, wait, no, I think it's Product Hunt and Angel List are like two sites that like you can kind of do that sort of type of thing with.
Yeah.
And I always see people on there like just ridiculous things. Like I've seen like memes of almost people like
Right.
asking for stuff.
No, you're spot on. There's a lot of companies, to be honest, that go that route.
Yeah.
It's usually from a perspective of, I'm looking for industry experts, subject matter experts to come in here and help. I'm looking to get a lot of capital, and so I can kind of expedite and speed up my growth. If
Yeah.
it's an interesting product that is first to market,
Mm-hmm.
then at that point it's just a land grab. We need to
Mm-hmm.
raise as much money so we can go and capitalize and get it in, file
Yeah.
patents, get all this stuff situated super fast,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can have the best chance of succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it really, like, we have a lot of products, and we've had a few service businesses, but we've never really invested
Mm-hmm.
in them. It's usually productized or even SaaS platforms
Mm-hmm.
that come in here to scale, because as you get into building those sorts of tech products and even like manufactured goods and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it really gets into some bigger costs when you
Right.
bring in development teams and marketing teams and all
Yeah.
these interesting different things. But yeah, you're right. Angel
Yeah.
List, those are a little bit more from my perspective, like, those are a little more public view. What tends to happen is we use like different angel groups here in the valley and nationally use there's two main tools. So there's one called Proseeder and there's one called Gust.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our kind of deal management platforms that companies apply to us through, and we can go and view them. They're
Gotcha.
a little more closed circle. Legally, they're only allowed to present to accredited investors who
Mm-hmm.
are if they're looking for equity investment. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Gotcha. No. Okay. So, and to tie that all up, so you have basically a platform. You guys are an organization. You have a platform that companies apply to you that want funding. Do you also have like investors coming to you, or do you have like already like a pre-defined network of people that are already kind of like just investing through you? Or like if I was an investor and I wanted to invest in different companies, could I like be a part of like, could I be like a part of your network, a part of other networks and stuff like that?
Yeah, so both actually. We have a network of a lot of investors. We've got 70 right now, so it's like a membership. You just join our organization, and you'll get access to the deals, and you'll get access to our undergrads due diligence and those sorts of things. But there's a few angel groups here. There's two. There's one down in Tucson. There's one in Scottsdale. And of course, we're here in kind of the west side of Phoenix, and we have a lot of investors that are part of multiple organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also partnered with other angel groups across the country, because we kind of share. It's called like we syndicate deal flow,
Right.
where we'll share like, hey, we got this really cool company. They're we've put X amount into them, and here I'm gonna pack. We think it'd fit into what you guys are doing, and you may get some value out of that. So we'll send them to Texas or to the Bay Area or to Notre Dame. All these interesting
Right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a thought here because we mentioned Shark Tank, Mark Cuban, and stuff like that, and I kind of a little bit about like sort of what I'm doing, obviously, and how it applies here, and I want to run something by you because I've been thinking about this, but it's just way down the priority list. So I have Mark Cuban has, I believe, a company called Mark Cuban Companies. Like if you type that in, you can kind of see it on LinkedIn. It's venture capital, and if you type in like the site, I think it's markcubancompanies.com or something like that. It shows all of the companies that I guess he owns, like the Mavs are on there, a lot of things from Shark Tank are on there. So I guess like if Mark Cuban came to you guys, for instance, right? I guess he would be investing via that company. Does that happen? Like, is that something that seems familiar?
So yeah, it gets more into the investment vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that'll take place if he wants to go in as a standalone investor, and he'll just go in through would assume that's like an LLC,
Yeah.
that's set up as like a series LLC out of Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something that and I can't speak off the top of my head,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's how that would work. What we tend to do is what's called special purpose vehicles, SPVs. So this basically the idea is that if we can lower the threshold for investors to come into deals at, then it makes it really a lot more of a beneficial opportunity. So usually the lowest amount that companies will accept for you to get on their cap table, so equity in their company, is going to be 25 grand. What we do is, because angel investing is so risky, and because our investors are like, hey, like I don't want to throw necessarily 25,000 into this company that might just fail. We'll get, say, 3 or more investors who want to put in 10K or 5K, and we'll coordinate that with them, create a shell company, and have that shell company invest into the startup. That way it benefits our investors. So say you and I wanted to put in 15K each, but we didn't want to put 25, so we put 15 into a shell legal entity, and that was a 30K investment. Then that 30K investment, Mark and Andrew LLC or whatever, goes into the startup. It keeps their cap table clean because now they don't have 2 other guys. They just have 1. And then you and I each own a corresponding percentage of that LLC. We would each own 50% because we put in 50% each of the total dollar amount, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Well, that is, I think that I commend you for getting into all that, because I think that's probably going to tremendously benefit you moving forward, whether you decide to use it or not. But again, the relationships and everything that you're kind of learning there. And I appreciate it. Like I said, sharing that with us, our audience here, and myself. I greatly appreciate that, because
definitely
it was definitely educational. So you've been doing that for how long? How long have you been involved with Canyon Angels?
Since in a leadership position since the spring, but involved, I'd say probably till probably about 1 year ago.
Gotcha.
Today.
Okay.
Last October, last September.
Gotcha. Okay. So throughout all this, this time here in this crazy year of 2020, and I know that somewhere in the middle of the year, I think it was like June-ish, you started a podcast as well.
Yeah. So started that just to kind of, was sitting at, sitting home going like, what do I want to do in this meantime? While, things kind of slowed down. Of course, more companies started asking for money and less investors wanted to invest. So it was kind of like balance. And so, Connor and I were just like, hey, let's start a podcast and just kind of, chat back and forth, because we've had some people like, hey, what you guys have to say is valuable. Of course, I mean, you probably think the same thing when people are like, man, what you have to say is valuable. You're like, no, I don't really think so. I'm 2 brain cells short of being declared mentally insane at this point. You yourself like, man, do I really have value to offer? And so we figured, might as well set up a time, every few weeks to just kind of chat and throw our 2 cents back and forth.
Yeah. So I saw you had a few episodes. You brought on a couple people, right? I mean, I saw you brought on a one. I think his name was, I can't pronounce his last name, but Anthony, the TikTok star. I was listening to that one
Oh yeah, my
recently.
my friend Anthony Bertonson. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a stud.
Yeah. So like I like the idea. We talked about it a little bit before we started the episode here. What did you like? What was your experience so far? I know you said you have a couple more episodes and everything to release there, and I'm assuming you guys liked it. What was like the I mean, obviously the goal was to just kind of get the value out there and everything like that. What was your experience? Did you enjoy it? How
Oh
did that
yeah, I
go?
loved it. I mean, having a podcast is fun.
Yeah.
Just because you get to talk. I mean, who doesn't love to
Yeah.
talk?
Yeah.
And you get to learn a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, well, I'm excited for you to bring it back. I'm excited for you guys to continue doing that because I'd love to listen to more, and I'd love to meet Connor too. That's
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to. Yeah, he's matter of fact, he's in class right now. Currently. But yeah, I'll have to get you guys connected because
yeah,
he's got a really interesting story, and I think
yeah.
you definitely get a lot of good conversation out of him.
Nice, good stuff, man. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different stuff here so far, but where you're at now, I don't know if you're actually physically there, but ZorroSign,
Yep.
right? So you said it's a startup, and this is like, I guess, like another chapter of the things that you're doing, kind of taking all the skills that you've learned so far at all the other opportunities that you've had. So walk me through how this got started. I remember back on LinkedIn, probably I think it was maybe a few months ago. It was I saw your new career opportunity and your announcement for that. So like, how did this get started? How did you get connected with them, and what's this startup life like?
Yeah, so it was in September, towards the end of September. Of course, GCU got back into session on the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, kids came back to campus the 21st.
Yeah.
And it was about that time, I was messaging. So, and I guess this kind of also relates to what GCU is doing out here. And this isn't like, I'm not the official spokesperson for the
Yeah.
school, whatever.
I
I'm
get
just
you.
a huge advocate for what
Yeah.
they're doing. But GCU launched kind of this business accelerator incubator project called Canyon Ventures
Mm-hmm.
with the purpose of, because college degrees, the discrepancy between cost and value is getting so large,
Mm-hmm.
and they're becoming less and less valued as education, becomes free and all this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. Just a simple cost benefit analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the school realizes now, it's not so much like an instant conversation because trade schools and like Lambda school,
Yep.
I imagine you're familiar with
Yep.
projects like that.
Mm-hmm.
The school realized now it's an ROI conversation that parents are having with their
Mm-hmm.
children. And so the university was like, hey, not only are we, I mean, being the largest Christian university in the country is not a big enough selling point. We need to actually, you know, short of guaranteeing students a job, but say we need to provide them an opportunity to get three big things. The first one being a professional network,
Mm-hmm.
the second one being a degree, and the third thing being relevant industry experience. And so GCU back in August of last year launched Canyon Ventures. It's we're in 130,000 square foot building here on the university's campus. And what it is essentially a group of about 35 to 40 startups in
Mm-hmm.
here that don't pay rent, get access to free utilities and all this cool stuff,
Hmm.
with the caveat of hiring GCU students.
Mm.
So we've got everything from ed tech startups to SaaS companies to med tech to home construction, like all the like engineering,
Yeah.
like these really interesting. We got an electric longboard manufacturing organization
Yeah.
here. So really been involved with this place, and through that, just kind of spoke with the director who I'm good friends with, and he was like, "Hey, we got this company moving in from Dubai. They're relocating their headquarters here, and they want, they got some open opportunities." So, got connected with them, and they're like, "Wow, like let's have a conversation." And things ended up the way
Yeah.
they did, and super blessed and super
Yeah.
excited and trying to just bring more people into what's going on here because it's super exciting and can really change the dynamic that goes on at college.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is actually incredible. So I need to take a step back because I believe that I saw, I don't know if it was on your Instagram or LinkedIn or something. I think I saw a picture of almost like, did you post something about that, like was in like a view of like ZorroSign, but like it was in that building?
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
that the picture was in
Yeah.
Candy Ventures. I'm
Yeah.
here right now.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's what I thought. So like I didn't realize until you kind of explained that was something that the university kind of like, started. It was something that they thought was going to be, another big thing that they could do to, I don't know, just increase people's, I guess, like interest in going to college and making sure that you, like you mentioned, the ROI thing.
Yeah, helping students succeed definitely.
That is that's a whole topic on its own, like just the idea of like college and like how it's gotten so,
Right?
like it's like I don't
The
even, I mean,
conversation has changed.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have definitely evolved as like students and like as a society and stuff like that. And like prices have just gone through the absolute roof with like
Absolutely.
housing and education costs. And honestly, I look back at my time at the University of Pittsburgh and it's like why like I didn't stay there, I just commuted, so I saved a lot of money like that. But I
Yeah.
honestly feel like I learned so much from YouTube and so many other things that as far as the education goes, if I would have been a little more mature minded at the time, I probably could have learned almost, if not everything that I learned there, at least the usable things, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And it's just like you're kind of just paying for a piece of paper. I'm not completely, saying that nobody should go to college, but what I do find incredibly, I don't know, insightful in a way, or like incredibly. I want to commend GCU for doing something like that because that is something that I've never heard of before. Like where they actually bring in like kind of like this startup culture of all these different things, all these different industries, and then just as you explained there, that seems like an incredible opportunity for people that go to GCU.
It's, I'm not a huge advocate of the college thing either, to be
Yeah,
quite honest with you,
yeah,
because of the cost associated with
yeah,
the paper. But I think it really plays into not college being bad, but it's where do you go,
right,
right? And you're spot on, GCU. I mean, I can't give enough credit, and I'm not. It's not like I'm a fanboy, right?
right,
Because that's what we're
yeah,
saying. But from an actual return on investment perspective,
mm-hmm,
GCU has an angel investment group, one of the only in the country. They
mm-hmm,
have this accelerator, which is probably like one out of like five, like single digits.
mm-hmm,
The and being able to be an integral part of what's going on here. I mean, the university's already had schools from New York to the Bay Area inquire about what's going on here.
mm-hmm,
Um, I mean, we had a huge event in February where we brought it was like 300 of Arizona's business leaders, tech leaders. I mean, we had some celebrities here
mm,
in this building
yeah,
just to kind of build awareness of what was going on, and now it's become kind of this big, you know, I guess like a lighthouse
yeah,
of what's what it can be done with universities. I mean, universities they've got millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and some schools are choosing to spend that on new sports complexes, and
right,
that's nothing. There's nothing necessarily bad about that, but I think it remains to be spoken about as like how are you increasing return on investment, right?
yeah,
Like what's how many of your students get jobs, what is, and a lot of universities they wouldn't collect statistics on that information, right? Like
mm-hmm,
how many get employed, what's their average salary, what's the degree they exited with, and how does that compare, what are their networking events like, how are you putting them out there, promoting them through your network. So
mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, certainly, man. That's incredible. And like, so maybe a little more detail on like sort of like that vibe there and everything like that. So you have like a bunch of startups kind of in that building.
Mhm.
And so for instance, ZorroSign, the one that you're working with right now, like that was a company, a startup that you said their head HQ is in Dubai, and now they
Yes.
moved into like the States, and like obviously they probably saw this as a huge opportunity. So like what is that like? Maybe like if you want to talk specifically to ZorroSign, we could do that. Like what kind of like what's the product? I kind of know what the product is, but if you want to share it, and then
Yeah,
like sort of the vibe and just like what the structure is like and just what the startup life is like, really.
definitely. So ZorroSign specifically, we're a tech company that's essentially helping in organizations in the finance, government, and healthcare spaces,
Right.
even some real estate,
Yeah.
execute, track, and authenticate digital documents, digital transactions on a secure blockchain network.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you have companies like DocuSign and
Yep.
HelloSign, these
Yep. Heard of
document
them.
sign companies. Uh, the problem is the security and the certification are two of the main issues that we've realized, especially as it relates to healthcare and as it relates to government and financial industry as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because with those documents, they're using most of them use a technology. It's called e-signature,
Mm-hmm.
which requires for it to stay legally compliant requires a recertification about every 2 years. What ZorroSign has built to solve that problem is what's called digital signature. So our founders have been pioneering the technology since like 1999,
Mm-hmm.
ever since the E-Sign Act was passed by President Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And so what digital signature does is essentially has the same legal equivalent of wet ink. So our documents are, because they're in the blockchain, are immutable, meaning that they never need to be recertified. There's a unique serial that's associated not only with the individual signing, but the actual signature. Each action is recorded unique. And then the other cool thing is because those documents are immutable and encoded in the blockchain, we can go back and look at an audit trail of every action within that document. Meaning, if I was to send you a document, like say, you were to send me a contract, I sign my signature, and then, I send it to somebody else and they go into the PDF and they just decide to edit the entire contract except my signature.
Mm-hmm.
Then it can look as though I signed something that I did not actually agree to. With ZorroSign, we can go back and look at that audit trail and pinpoint exactly where was the document completed, when was it completed, how was it completed. We can look at geographical location the document was signed in, like all these different security protocols. But essentially, helping people stay more secure, helping companies stay more organized, and allowing them to go paperless and eco-friendly.
Yeah. No, I've definitely heard of. I was in the real estate industry for a time, like as the marketing in the marketing thing, not as an agent. But yeah, I definitely heard of DocuSign. I've heard of HelloSign. So that's awesome that there are companies like ZorroSign, at least maybe the only. I don't know, like trying to make that process a lot more secure. Not just in real estate is probably like an important one, but even the ones that you mentioned too. I didn't even think of that.
So
Like,
I think there's just a lot on the line.
yeah.
And what we've realized, kind of the thing that we realized is, the malicious individuals, they're a step ahead of, right? The bad
Yeah.
guys are always a step ahead of the cops. It's
Right.
always with these big, with especially with digital technology, it's always a lot of playing catch up. And what we want to do is be able to, we use this, kind of idea of protecting your gold. In a
Mm-hmm.
sense, it's
Yeah.
kind of this idea that we, threw around, was like, we want to put people in control of their information, of their valuable documents, of their valuable information in there. And because like when you send an email and you click send, if I was to send you an email before you got it, but after I click send, where does it go? That's a
Mm-hmm.
question that's not asked enough.
Mm-hmm.
And within those milliseconds, there can be theft. And
Mm-hmm.
we want to eliminate any worry, any concern, even the slightest amount of concern that people have when it's their valuable information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to answer your question, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to go
Oh
kind of
yeah.
down the rabbit hole there,
You're
but
good.
you know how it is
Yeah.
when you have something that
I
you're
hear you.
passionate about.
I hear you.
The startup vibe, it's really interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's dynamic, it's ever changing. It's not a 9 to 5, that's for sure. Being
Mm-hmm.
in an incubator like this, it's like you come to work and you work about 75% of the time that you're at work, and the 25% of your time is meeting and greeting. You never know who's going to walk through the door.
Mm-hmm.
You never know who's going to stop by. The cool thing is there's tours that go through here. There's always people to meet. There's always, things to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a really interesting dynamic going on here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure, for sure. It sounds like a great place to be. I wish I was out in Arizona. I could come through and check out that. If I ever am, I'll hit you up and I'll.
Definitely. Yeah. Hey, you're more than welcome. Come on
Yeah,
by.
yeah,
Open doors, open hearts.
yeah. Sweet man. What is like your right now? Obviously, in your time there, what's kind of like your role? So what's like your day to day? I know you said like you're working and meeting people, but like your actual, like role at ZorroSign, the things that you're doing. What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, so that's ZorroSign brought on as one of their sales team members,
Mm-hmm.
and so really working on building new relationships, creating new opportunities
Mm-hmm.
with industry partners,
Mm-hmm.
industry leaders, and potential partners in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Working with prospects, that sort of thing. Really, just kind of sharing what we're doing, building awareness, and being like, "Hey, look, like this is what we have. We want to give you the competitive edge and say, look, like we're here to help. We're under the hood, ready to work, ready to really elevate your organization and put your clients first, help you protect your clients' data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's a great conversation to have day to day. A lot of things. I mean, it's a startup, so you wear a lot of hats, right?
Right, for sure.
We get to drive the car at some point, and
Hmm.
other times you're
Yeah,
sitting in the passenger seat, and other
yeah,
times you're pumping gas.
yeah.
So kind of that same thing, sometimes it's running demos and kind of in that regard. Sometimes it's, making introductions. Other times it's bringing on new team members. It's, a lot of different things, but I think, being in a startup like that, it gives you a lot of skill, a lot of, you pick up a lot by having a lot of responsibility in that regard.
Mm-hmm. With ZorroSign and the other startups there, like what's kind of the I don't want to say like just like the straight up definition of a startup, but like where is it like all of those companies in there, where are they kind of sitting as far as like where they are in the journey? And then maybe it's too new of a concept still, but like how do you exit out of that? When do you kind of like grow and like, just from your experience, what would you say there?
So yeah, a lot of the companies in here, the idea is to get companies to $1 million in revenue within 3 years,
Okay.
um, if they're more of that startup. But now we've kind of pivoted a little bit to more of an accelerator. So
Mm-hmm.
taking high growth, highly scalable companies and really putting them on rocket fuel. We actually have one of the companies in here is an inside sales organization
Mm-hmm.
that works with some of the organizations in here to kind of expedite growth. And so I think in terms of the companies in here, we've got some companies that are on track to do a few million this year. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty sizable organizations, a few software companies and such. Um, Though, there's some organizations that'll kind of be the cornerstone, kind of the corner tenants that'll stick around here to kind of anchor this down, similar to like a mall.
Yeah.
Uh, but then I think once and I think definitely somebody that you should be I'll connect you with is their
Yeah.
director of the center. His name is Robert Vera. I
Yeah.
mean, the guy, investment banker, New York Times best-selling author, public speaker. This guy's a stud.
Mm-hmm.
He runs this place, and that's one of the other things. I'm like, man, this guy he was doing all this, and he wants to come sit in this building with a bunch of college students
Yeah.
and help grow something from the ground up. So it kind of shows the dynamic of entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of in terms of scaling out, I don't know. That remains to be seen. We haven't had any companies scale out of here yet, but we do have some pretty big ones that are
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I'm sure you'll continue to see that. It only makes sense that trajectory is going to continue to
Yeah.
trend upward with everything you guys are doing. And just each company in and of itself is, got the talent of GCU now at its fingertips, and like just I don't know. That just seems like a utopia of like of an environment and of a school because you have again, when I went to Pitt, it was a little different because I didn't like actually stay there or anything like that. So I kind of just felt it was an extension of high school. But like
Yeah.
with something like that, it's you got to feel as a student that the people that your money first of all is actually getting some ROI like we touched on earlier, but also the fact that the people in your corner are actually in your corner. They're trying to give you opportunities. They're trying to do all these sorts of things, and just like I don't know, it seems like a great environment to continue to grow and learn from. So I'm very happy for you. I'm very excited for
Yeah,
GCU.
crazy. I tell you, it's for any of your listeners who are considering college,
Yeah.
I cannot stress both from an affordability aspect and from a career perspective.
Yeah.
GCU should be towards the top of your list,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, man. I gotta be honest. I'd never heard of it before you, but
right?
I've
It's one of
definitely
those
heard of it.
hidden gems, baby.
I've definitely heard of it now, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to promote it to anybody that's looking for something like this, and especially in the episode and everything like that with the in the notes and all that sort of stuff.
Love it.
But yeah, man, it sounds like you're doing some awesome things here. Very excited for you. What else do you kind of have going on? I want to make sure that we obviously we continue to touch on. I'd love to have you on the show again, sometime down the road here, and just continue to connect and stuff like that, especially with our audience and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and for this right here, so everything you're doing with ZorroSign and everything moving forward, do you have any? I often think about kind of like the future. I don't think about it in like a solid, like this has to happen, this has to happen, has to happen type thing. But do you have any plans for the future? Like what's kind of like, is there anything on your roadmap that you definitely want to make sure that you hit, or just like in general, like what's kind of your plan moving forward?
Yeah, moving forward, right? I guess I know you follow Patrick Bet David. So
Yeah.
what was his book?
Next five
Yeah.
moves. Yeah.
Um, so I guess as the year, because I graduate here in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
seeing how ZorroSign goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think being, having an opportunity in a highly scalable organization, especially at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
there's all sorts of opportunity there without diving too much into that.
Yeah.
And being young again and having a lot of, I'm fortunate and blessed enough to have a reasonably sized network that I can,
Yeah.
touch on if
Yeah.
need be. But definitely would love to be in some sort of a leadership position in terms of sales
Yeah.
within the next year or so. Going to be staying here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Upon graduation because California. And I'm from Central, so there's not much stuff going on there,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of dynamic opportunity out here.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on so far in terms of big life goals. Haven't really made those out, all that much. I think it's just kind of seeing, where where things go. So I'm Christian, so kind of trusting in faith and
Yeah.
understanding, hey, things are gonna kind of be, go where they go, and
Certainly.
there's a plan out there. So not stressing too much on the future, but also being a good steward of what's been given.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I definitely hear that. That's I'm happy to hear it, man. I'm happy to see that you're doing so well. I'm excited. I'm excited for the future there. So good stuff. Yeah, man. So again, really appreciate you. Really appreciate it. I hope that everything that you're doing here, I have the utmost faith that you're going to continue to trend upward with all the stuff you're doing. You're just too damn ambitious to have anything else.
Good time.
Yeah, but I'm excited for you, man. I'd love to have you back on. I'd love to have Connor and maybe both of you guys. Maybe we could have that.
I'll be happy to connect you with him and Robert. Definitely, he is a man that you should talk to. He's amazing.
Always likewise, man. Always trying to expand the network, man. That's the name of the game. Just trying to meet more people, have these good conversations. Just trying to learn from people and implement, and then share that with the people on the other end. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to ask you these final 3 questions that we ask everyone on the show here. They're not hard. They're just they're really insightful, and I think that they really tie everything that we talk about, pretty much every episode, together, and then also really gives the people and myself a really, just like all around insight into like who you are, who our guest is, and just like a bunch of the stuff. So I'll quit rambling and I'll tell you the first one. It's who are your 3 biggest influences, would you say? Like throughout your whole life, they could be people that are in your life. They could be people online. They could be groups of people. But if you had to try to narrow it down, I know it's difficult as hell for me to narrow it down to 3. But if you could narrow it to 3, like 3 big ones, who would you say have mostly turned you and molded you into the person that you are today?
Yeah, so I'd say definitely my parents. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think a lot of people would say that.
Yeah.
Guidance, mentorship from literally day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then being able to bless me with some of the opportunities that I have, and it's on me to pay them back, right? Like
Right.
we've
Yeah.
taken out the loan, and
Yeah.
now we're paying it back to them,
Yeah.
figuratively, of course.
Yeah.
And then second person, I don't know if it's an individual person, but definitely kind of the business community that I've been able to find here at GCU,
Mm-hmm.
both friends and mentors. Definitely just having a lot of good mentors here, and I think that's something important for any young entrepreneur, any young individual. It doesn't matter if you're in business or not,
Mm-hmm.
right? To have some sort of mentor, whether it's your parents or not. But I think it's always good to have another perspective, because your parents are always going to do what they do because they love you,
Mm-hmm.
and they care about you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's good to have mentors who will kind of, they'll cut the shit in a sense,
Yeah.
and they'll give it to you, the hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really valuable to have somebody that kind of checks you,
Mm-hmm.
Um, so definitely the mentors here. And then, third person, to be honest, I don't know if I really have people. I think it's more or less just, I'd say definitely, the Christian faith
Mm-hmm.
influenced me.
Yeah.
Definitely, kind of that whole mentality around servant leadership,
Yeah.
and just being, how do you, whether you're an entrepreneur, but what in it, whatever it is that you do, how do you serve other people?
Mm-hmm.
Because from your own perspective, yeah, it'll come and it'll pay dividends on the back. What goes around comes around type thing. But
Yeah.
also, I think you can get a lot of self-fulfillment out of serving other people, and using what you have to help them be more successful.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I was raised Catholic, man. I feel you. There's a lot of good that comes out of that sort of stuff. Just like strong
Definitely.
morals, strong values, and then
Exactly right.
yeah, I feel you, man. I know where you're at. So great stuff there. Happy for the positive impacts that you've had on your life, and I think a lot of people would agree with parents, mentors, and all that sort of stuff. I 100% feel that. Okay, the second question is just in general. Somebody comes up to you, or you're speaking or something like that. What is your go-to best advice? It could be life advice. It could be geared towards a certain thing, but just best overall advice, something that you strive to do every single day, and again, just your overall best piece.
Yeah, there's man,
It's a tough one, I know.
that is honestly, I said something to one of my colleagues here the other day, that you have a lot of that cliche catchphrase type stuff,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of I guess perspective,
Hmm.
I guess, that people can provide. I want to see if I can find this. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
I mean, there's a lot of it out there, dude. I mean, this is those type of questions where it's like, I mean, there's a million things that I think all of us could say, but I try to, I try to just
Right.
get our guests like, what's the best? It's tough. It's a
It
tough
is
question.
tough, without just giving the cliche line. I
Yeah.
guess, I would say a few things. The big one being just like, you never know.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
that's the way I kind of live my life. Like, you never know what's gonna happen till you try.
Yeah.
And if you don't try, then you're just I mean, it's like the Wayne Gretzky quote again.
Yeah.
It's very typical, but the truth that it has is like
Yeah.
is huge, because you never know if you don't take the risk. Like, 9 times out of 10, 9.9% of the time, or
Hmm.
9.9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
you're gonna get burned. But what happens about that 0.1 times that you don't get burned and things work out?
Hmm.
That's the way I kind of look at life. Is like,
Yeah.
hey, let's um, you know what do you want to, do you know what you want to do? Great. Okay, let's go and throw into this thing. And then if you don't know what you do, okay, here, hop, jump in the pool and learn to swim on your way down. Like,
Yeah.
um, that's kind of what I would say,
Yeah.
is just go, just run, because it doesn't matter what age you are. The clock's ticking. We're running
Yeah.
out of time. You can't get it back, right?
Yeah.
It's the one asset that is
Yeah.
forever depreciating is your
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, like just go and whatever it is that you're spending your time doing, at least you're spending it doing something and not nothing.
Yeah. It's great advice, man. And more people need to heed that because I don't know. I think there's a lot of people out there just kind of wasting their time. And again, like you said, can't get it back.
Hey,
So.
I've stayed on TikTok sometimes for a few hours. Hey, I'm not an exception, man. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Just got to try to limit it as much as possible. I'm
right?
in the
Yeah.
same boat. I'm in the same boat, man. Goddamn TikTok. All right. But yeah. So, okay. So the last one is the easiest one of the three. And we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about everything that you have going on. And what I always want to do, I want to make sure that anybody that comes on the show, which again, I greatly appreciate it, anybody that is willing enough to come on here and chat with me and talk to our audience here, I want to make sure that we do everything we can to promote anything that you have going on. So if you want to plug anything, if you want to talk about anything, I'll leave links and everything in the description and the show notes and everything, so you don't need to like go super in depth on like what the links are, like figure out what your handles are. But just anything that that you feel passionately about, and I know you're a big proponent. Obviously, we've talked about establishing your personal brand, so I'll make sure to have all that stuff. But just anything you want to red carpet here for you.
Yeah, I'd say, definitely check out, if you're a young student, or, you're in high school and you're still having that conversation, check out GCU.
Yeah.
Head over to gcuworks.com.
Yeah.
That's the website that was thrown up for Canyon Ventures. But other than that, I would just say, there's not, I don't have much to
Yeah.
promote, more or less. Like,
Yeah.
if connect with me on LinkedIn if I can
Yeah.
help in any way. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm always here to serve. And yeah, I guess I found the quote that I wanted to say, by the way.
Yeah, hit it. Yeah.
Oh, so it said, the quote is, be widely known in narrow circles. That's the way I would suggest to a lot of young individuals, whether you're in whatever, is don't be narrowly known by a lot of people, but
Right.
have your character be widely known by a few people, because those few people can become advocates for you.
Yeah. Certainly. 100%.
That's all I got, man.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Alrighty, well, like I said, I'll make sure to put all the links in the description and everything like that. I want to make sure you're an ambitious dude. You're doing great stuff. I love talking to you.
Likewise, my friend. Hey,
and,
we'll get you on our podcast.
I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, and I just want to make sure that other people, get to experience these what I would call great influences and great conversations. So I'll definitely make sure that people have the ability to reach out to you, talk to you, and stuff like that. And best of luck, man. Best of luck with everything you're doing. GCU seems like the absolute bomb. So hopefully they continue to do everything they're doing. And just very excited. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So, alrighty. Well, again, Andrew, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man.
Likewise, Mark. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Fueled by Progress with my guest, Andrew Flowers. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.